Whoop whoop.
Out there to check on it. The wrestling world in shock today. Former champion Chris Benoit found dead in his Atlanta home along with his wife and young son.
Yeah, happy Sunday. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all having a great weekend. Giggity, giggity, whoop, whoop. Yeah, pal. Of course, nothing really to whoop, whoop about on this episode. Kind of one of the worst tragedies in wrestling history here, pal.
Christopher Benoit's brain, it is in fact shocking. For over a decade, those closest to the killings have been left traumatized and desperate for closure. For the first time, friends and family have come together to tell the story in their own words.
Chris was just this gentle giant.
Sorry, guys. Feeling a little bit under the weather, so there'll be a lot of coughing tonight.
Your family, that's not an easy statement for me to make.
So many details are so crazy to understand. I need to talk about this. If you don't want to hear it, if you're going to give me shit about it later, say I'm glorifying a murder, stop listening now.
Yeah, this is pretty heavy, pal. Yo, what's up, Lambert? Good to see you, pal. Throwing what? Bearcats in the house. Hey, what's up, Gam? Good to see you, pal. Whoop, whoop. Yeah, but we can do a yeet. Yeet to seeing you. Whoop, whoop.
My grandfather came to his very first show in Edmonton. And he saw the dynamite kid. And he was like, okay, that's what I want to do. My dad, he looked up to him. That was his idol.
Yeah, we yeet on Sunday here, pal. Whoop, whoop. Yeet. Yeet. You know, it's awkward as fuck. I don't got a lot of space to work with, pal. I figured out how to work the ring light on my new camera, courtesy of our boy MSG. Thank you again, man. Seriously, this thing is fucking awesome. Yeah, it seems like a rough season this year.
Small as the giants you can find in the WWF. I thought, wow, they're kind of my size. So in that aspect, someone like Chris Benoit was kind of an early influence on me. Most intense and believable performer I've ever been in the ring with. You could see things that would happen before they happened. First job was wrestling.
One of the most insane bumps I remember ever seeing. I remember it was they were doing a repeat of the Benoit Booker Best of 7 series in the WWE for the U.S. title. And there's one time where Booker was on the outside. His back was to the announce table. Benoit goes for like a suicide dive. Booker goes out of the way. And as Benoit dives through the ropes, he like turns in midair and like his spine, like he's like his spine hits the corner of the front of the announce table. Like you see him bounce and bend and then just flop to the floor.
Futurist with Benoit over in Japan, and we had a match. I gave him a spin kick, and I didn't hit him in the head with it, nor should you. It's wrestling. You work together to put on a show. He felt like he exposed the business with his ineptitude. Meanwhile, I bet you nobody noticed anything because a quick kick goes by. He take a bump. It's not on TV. Who cares? He cared. Found him at the back doing hack squats, like Hindu squats, where you just go up and down like one. What's wrong? He's like, I messed up that kick, and I have to do squats.
Yeah, he did take a lot of completely insane bumps that were just unnecessary. Like no reason for it. None.
And Eddie was like that too. Wrestling fans, of course, all know who Eddie Guerrero is. To many in the wrestling world, he's considered as one of the absolute best wrestlers of all time. Chavo Guerrero Jr., third generation professional wrestler from the legendary Guerrero family.
Man, you got to feel bad for Chavo throughout that entire thing too, because he was like the last person who Chris was in contact with before he died.
He was this tall Mexican guy with long hair and cowboy boots and pants that were tight, and I loved his ass, and he was the most gorgeous guy. My name is Vicky.
TMI, Vicky. TMI.
He loved wrestling. He ate it, he dreamt it. He was always doing promos in the bathroom mirror. He was always showing me, hey, can I try this move on you and tell me if it hurts? Those were kind of
And to be, I don't mind them including like a portion of Eddie Guerrero's story in this, because Eddie Guerrero and his story is extremely integral to Chris Benoit and his story.
Especially from that generation. Very small, though. Here in Japan, the referee, Vittori, used to call him the Mexican flamingo. Big upper body, small leg. I think Chris and Eddie first met in Japan, if I'm not mistaken. Almost like they owed each other a lot of money.
You know, I can't wait to have to work with him for the next week or two.
I think even in today's world of wrestling, every company out there, watch those matches. Those guys are like way ahead of time. I really wanted to.
Yeah, that's something new I learned. I did not realize that Eddie did not like Benoit when they first met.
An animal like those guys. It's Black Tiger. Chris was Pegasus Kid, Ron Pegasus. Those two just saw things differently. And that was part of what made them so great.
The more they fought, I think the more they started, respecting each other. They hit it off, and they ended up just, being the best of friends. These particular earrings are a pair that my sister wore as woman on WCW. I decided that I would wear what she thought would look good on camera. My name is Sandra Toffoni, and I am the only sibling of Nancy Benoit. My sister Nancy, who's married right out of high school. Matches, she really liked it. There was a moment where I don't know if it was a promoter or another manager that picked her out of the crowd. Just a beautiful woman. The first time it was just kind of like a weekend thing, and then it turned into something else. She met Kevin Sullivan in Florida Championship Wrestling. He's probably one of the greatest promoters and bookers that's ever worked in wrestling.
Kevin Sullivan, who was this satanic character, and he was satanic because he shaved an X into it.
To be fair, Kevin Sullivan is actually one of the smartest, most brilliant minds in wrestling history.
The ones makes it home safe for the safety-minded who watch everyone's backs.
And we got an ad break, pal.
For every industry, as well as safety assessments and training to keep your facility safe and your people safer. Call, click Granger.com, or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
It's the Ashley President's Day sale. Feel the freedom of your best night's sleep ever with up to $200
Yeah, sorry, guys. A little bit rough here.
later with 3 month special financing. And for a limited time, receive a $300
Indeed it does, Gam.
purchase of a premium mattress with tons of
I know from personal experience.
customizing your sleep head. Online today, only at Ashley. Subject to credit approval. Minimum monthly payments required. No minimum purchase required. See store for details.
Oh, come on. I got the skip. Come on.
He never did let it go. Didn't get murdered.
That's some BS, pal.
And that would really suck when there is a galaxy far, far away, and every second does count. To his chest hair, make a bond. That's about the extent of his Satanism, you know.
Yeah, that was Donnie.
And they had an instant connection as friends, and then that shows
Even though Donnie can't do the copyright thing, he can still do something, or she could do something.
to Kevin, he had this
Screw with us, pal.
in his head to grow this gimmick of he's the Prince of Darkness and in him, and Nancy by his side as the fallen angel.
Welcome to Polynesian Pro Wrestling. I'm Angel, your co-host, and here's my master, Kevin Sullivan.
You know, Angel?
The name Fallen Angel came from the Uriah Heep album, and the cover of it had this beautiful woman in a leatherish bikini with feathers and a sword, and she looks at that cover and said, "Man, that's the gimmick."
She's gonna what she did. Probably one first.
Okay, I've never seen this before, like the early, Kevin Sullivan's early gimmick and how, woman was originally called Angel and like what it was inspired by. Like, okay, damn, like this is new to me.
Stop her. They recognized her.
This is actually that's a great 80s heel villain. Great 80s heel act.
Hands on. And she loved it because she knew if they hate me, I'm absolutely doing my job.
She wasn't a wrestler, but she was very valuable as a ringside performer. And that's a lost art. This is better than most.
She did Kevin's makeup. She did her own makeup. She did everything. The hair.
Yep.
The stage.
Did it twice once with Brian Pillman and then with
Nancy would be there with
him, Benoit, and his own wife. And he ended up writing his own divorce.
Oh man, he worshipped her, and she was all in with him. She was in love, and their dynamic was awesome. So they moved to WCW. It was a big step up, obviously, so from what they were doing.
WCW, where the big boys play. Dean Malenko, Chris Benoit, and Eddie Guerrero were the three amigos together.
Call this guy up the Canadian crippler.
And was a booker at the time, booking productions, booking talent for storylines. Everyone kept talking about this really great technical wrestler that was coming out. I knew he was new to the company, and I know that my brother-in-law wanted to book him.
Fallen Angel character. Then getting to WCW, she was woman.
I am woman. So men, look at it, wish you had it, and eat your heart. Woman was the one character. Personality.
I'm gonna watch your every move, Ric Flair. I'll see you at the class.
She's independent. She takes nothing from anyone, and gotta help you if you get in her way.
This one's for you. Really liked Chris. Really enjoyed working with him. And at that time, Kevin was booking Chris and himself into matches. And Nancy kind of became a part of it. Things were kind of happening a little weird, but nobody really knew what was going on.
In the business, that's always that Kevin Sullivan booked his own divorce. It's funny to a point, and then it's kind of not funny at all, because I'm certain that it's not meant to happen.
Yeah, to be fair, if that angle never happened, that is very likely that divorce would have never happened either. Or if it did, she probably wouldn't have ended up with Benoit. She probably would have ended up with somebody else.
You could always count on them. So Kevin Sullivan, the booker, the story maker, writes the story and has this idea to have a woman who is Nancy leave Kevin's side and start going with Kevin's arch rival, who is Chris Benoit. That's the most important thing you've ever had. WCW would film vignettes with Chris and Nancy being intimate together.
I'll tell you what. Sure feels great.
What they didn't plan for is that Chris Benoit.
Kevin was used to her always being there and kind of being his right-hand person, and with her focusing on physical altercations in the house, fights that escalated.
Nancy would reach out to Chris whenever she would have a bad night with Kevin, and Chris was her safe haven.
Okay, yeah, that stuff I did not know about, where Kevin was getting violent and she went to Chris for, consolation and support. Yeah, that's news to me. I did not know that.
Telling me that Nancy has had some problems and could I help her? Chris' office, and Chris brought her in to see me, and she came in and removed her sunglasses, and she had a huge black eye. She told me that I help him in any way we can. We need to document this. Just really hoping to try to help her get out of that abusive relationship. I just saw it as being it's gonna blow up.
Match at the beach was in Daytona Beach at the ocean. It was Kevin Sullivan going against Chris. It was a great match, I thought. So it looked super realistic. And then at one point, Chris and Kevin were really started exchanging blows. Chris hit Kevin really hard on the side of the head, and it broke his eardrum. The match ended, but the fight continued backstage. And I was called out to go backstage. I started to walk towards Kevin, and Chris is like, no, don't do that. And Kevin's yelling from the other end of the hallway, come on, come with me, we're leaving. Chris handed me the phone, and it was my sister on the other end. She said, Sandra, get out of there. Come home. Come to the condo. Just go with Chris. Do not go with Kevin. And I always do what my sister says, so that's what I did. No explanation needed.
Wow, I did not know about that incident either. Damn.
Talked to me, and she explained to me that her injuries were from Kevin, and that Chris had helped her, and that she was leaving Kevin. I told her she had to.
Yeah, okay, I did not know about that. See, if that situation played out like they're saying, well, yeah, you could definitely see why they'd go with Chris. You could easily see why they'd go with Chris.
Each other, we're like, oh yeah, it's gonna work. And Nancy and I became master friends.
Chris decided that he wanted to push his career forward a little bit. And then she just really, really, really wanted to focus on building the house and starting a family. And then all of a sudden, Daniel was born. I've never seen Chris so beyond himself, just excited.
This is my favorite page because this was during Chris and Nancy's wedding, and Daniel was the best man, of course. This is the love that Chris and Nancy always had. And then here's them feeding Daniel after they got married. And Nancy being the princess that she was. And David was there too, Chris's oldest.
David is the son of Chris Benoit, Chris's first marriage.
Nancy treated me like I was her own. We didn't use the word step in our family, you know. We were family. We went and had fun. Went to Chuck E. Cheese with Daniel and Nancy, and you know, it was good times.
This is my really favorite photo of David and Daniel. It's flippin' adorable. I mean, that's what siblings are.
Man, dude.
One another and hope for the best for each other.
You look up to me, you know.
Man, dude, going through this, I feel for David the most. Like, holy shit, man. There's losing his dad, his mom, and his brother. Like, shit, man. To something so horrific as that. Hey, what's up, Colin? What good to see you, pal. Whoop whoop. OGC in the house, pal. Of course, make sure you sign your NDA. Giggity giggity. How you doing, man?
They walked out. WWF picked them up in 1 second, and the rest is history. Got to WWE, and you really saw the strengths. Their intelligence for the business and their view of the business, and seeing like we see this, they saw this, and became one of the best characters of all time, as well as being one of the best in-ring champions. Benoit became just this killer, no nonsense, Clint Eastwood performer. It's like Dirty Harry. Go ahead, make my day.
Sid Wilson a main eventer for years. It was always a matter that he was too short. Perceived as too short.
Hey, go ahead, man. We could use the promotional Fightful. Whoop whoop. They be talking about us, pal. Monetize the haters.
But also, Chris was always very much a great father, very much about his family. His kids were always high up on his list.
Get me Kylie Ray, pal.
A little older, Chris. Of course, anytime when Chris brought kids around, I guess you would say. And there's a similarity.
Well, it's going to be on Fightful Select. $5 a month. The best $5 in the business. Whoop whoop. I know he started training. I don't know how far he got with it. Let's go look it up.
God was first, and close second.
Sometimes we'd be in the locker room, and Eddie's naked in the locker room reading scriptures to tell the wrestlers and telling them about God.
Chris wasn't religious at all, and he was the one that would start introducing him about God. And Chris was very receptive, and he always listened to Eddie. And Eddie had even given him a Bible one Christmas. And Chris always had that on him, and that was something that meant a lot to Eddie. To always be a witness to Chris, and to help him and try and find his higher power.
Chris is
trust somebody.
Eddie would be his go-to guy. He'd go and talk to him about certain things, whether it be marriage problems or family or professional problems. They'd always confide in each other, and that's what their friendship was. And I know that Chris didn't have that with a lot of people.
Chris.
Okay, so apparently Jericho stepped in and stopped David from wrestling.
He was really happy. She was the driving force and motivation, sort of taking care of everything else.
At least from one source I read.
She wanted him to be happy and to be successful and to be with his best friend.
Eddie was injured a lot. He had a lot of pain, a lot of injuries that he couldn't get operations for. As a wrestler, you never say that you need time off because as soon as you're on TV for 4 or 6 months.
Oh, very cool. So I'm guessing those are
that was something that was always
his sister's sons, I'd have to imagine.
stop
No,
now.
but that's cool, dude. Very cool. Dude, like they're kind of, because I think Dustin's doing a thing with Kevin Von Erich's sons, doing like a Sons of Texas thing. Like, dude, you could do like a Texas bloodline thing with the Rhodes and the Von Erichs.
Okay, and put on his side so he wouldn't throw up on himself. But then Eddie started getting DUIs, crashing his car, and having overdose problems.
Yes, sir. I
Did in our house. The first 2, I called the ambulance. And
best $5 in the business, pal.
the third time,
Directly from SRS.
she left and took the girls to school and just told God, if you're going to take him, just take him now because it was a bad place in my life.
A lot of wrestlers were dying. And in the back of your mind, always you're like, is Eddie going to be one of those? Is he going to be a statistic?
And he showed up to work high one day where he was in bad shape. And I think that when he saw that and he couldn't perform, that's when he said, we're going to go ahead and let you go. He called me and said, well, I finally was like, well, thank God. Because now the worst that could ever be imagined is happening.
They sent him to rehab, lost everything, and had to go from the depths of hell and work his way up the system again.
Little by little, he started changing his life to be clean.
After that, his wife came back, his family came back, his life came back.
And that's where Eddie got rehired from WWE, and things were great. He was in the best shape.
WrestleMania 20, the fans knew the history of Eddie and Chris. So the night in New York, it's the right time for both of these guys.
Me and Nancy were watching from the skybox. We were jittery and we were nervous and we were excited and we were stressed too because we didn't know, if they were going to win, what the outcome was.
Yeah, and people might be thinking like, why are you telling Eddie's story like in a Chris Benoit documentary? It's like, well, their stories are kind of intertwined. You need to know Eddie's story to understand Chris's.
He was my hero. Remember like yesterday, man. Jumped up after he won the belt.
Girls were excited. And of course, you see the confetti and, all the fans just on their feet.
And I got to see Eddie Guerrero go out there. Best friend. What a moment. I'll never forget that.
That's one of the best moments in not just wrestling history, I think TV history. It was the happy storybook ending of WrestleMania.
Thank God the office finally saw those guys for what they were.
It was my favorite time, favorite match. I wish those two just retired right after that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Daniel's got a point there. Yeah, they should have just retired after they're like that. Like that's the high point of both of their careers. There ain't no going up from there.
real, no bullshit, out of the ring, caring relationship.
So there's a So we get off the plane in Minneapolis, check into our hotel that we always go to, and we had seen Chris in the lobby also. Say, I'll see you down in the morning. Okay. 7 o'clock, and we're gonna go work out. It's set. You know, 3 of us together, this is the way it was. Eddie goes to his room, I go to my room. Next morning, I get a call about 5:30. It's the front desk. Something's wrong with your uncle. You know, something's wrong with my uncle. So I get a knock on my door, security guard. He's taking me to Eddie's room. I go, what's going on? He goes, well, your uncle didn't answer his wake-up call. So we came to his room and knocked. No answer. With the latch on, that means someone's in here. So they cut the latch off. I walk in and I look in the bathroom. I see Eddie face down. He's in his underwear. His toothbrush was in his hand. I grab him. I kind of try to shake him. He's moving, and I hear him gurgling. Like, Eddie wiping his face, and he's like, he's.
Give your kids a life-changing summer
Of course, you get an ad right there.
Camp Lakewood overnight camp. Why camp inspires kids.
Oh, JB doing commentary? Very cool.
Opportunities to laugh, learn, and make lasting friendships.
Good to see him on camera in some form again.
From paddleboarding and horse. Our trained counselors deliver meaningful experiences.
Yeah, the people I feel the worst for in all this is David Benoit and Chavo.
At YMCA Camp Lakewood.
And Vicky.
He's still there, man.
Well, and of course, you know, Nancy and Daniel.
He's in my arms, and he's not there anymore. He passed in my arms, like literally.
Damn, man.
I've been to this moment in a long time.
I mean, I knew that he'd been found in the bathroom with the toothbrush in his hand. I just didn't know those details. Like, holy shit.
Eddie passed away this morning, and all you hear is from a guy with no emotion whatsoever. You hear a wail. Just this wail from deep down, like a heartbreak. If you've ever heard what this was, a heartbreaking. And Vince called me, and he said, Vicky, he's just crying. I'm just like, I go, is it true? Eddie's passed away. He said, I'm sorry.
Yeah, David gets a lot of unjust shit thrown his way simply because of who his dad is.
And there wasn't really any sign that obviously he had relapsed.
He didn't relapse. The verdict was heart disease at 38.
I remember the day my sister called me hysterical. I couldn't even understand her. You need to take some breaths and you need to tell me what's going on because she couldn't even get the words out. When she told me, I burst into tears. And I thought about the kids, and Vicky really, just flashed in my head. And then my next thought was, oh my God, Chris.
Carlos passed away.
The tribute the WWE did couldn't have been any better. Yeah, the whole stage was filled with everyone from backstage, but all I could remember was Chris. He was just crying.
Now I know that I love you. I miss you.
Yeah, his testimonial that night, that was the one I'll never forget because that was the first time it's like, damn, dude. Man, now I'm going back. Now I'm going back to like when I first saw that when it first aired.
Funerals are never good, but Eddie's funeral was very hard. When I saw Benoit, man, he came and gave me a hug. But it was like the most desperate, saddest, hanging on for dear life hug that you could ever get. Sobbing, deep, hitching sobs, and leaving literally a patch of wetness on the shoulder of my suit that soaked through to the shirt, went through the jacket, the shirt of tears. I've never seen Chris show emotion before. You know, of course, it affected all of us, but I just think it affected Chris just like so much more. It affected Chris like a spouse or something.
Dude, Eddie was Chris's brother, man. Like, that was his brother.
Not only did it end Chris and Eddie's relationship, in a lot of ways, it kind of ended mine with him too. Time to take some time off, or give someone some time off. I think Chris needed to be away from himself for a while, but what else to do? He didn't handle it well. Let me just say it like that.
I was in bed like for the first week after we buried Eddie, and Nancy was the first one at the house, and she helped me with everything. I mean, she was the one who was making sure that the kids were fed. Finally, she just like walked in my room. She's like, "Enough." She goes, "Enough. Get up and shower. Get up because you have two girls that still love you and they need you." And I didn't want to do anything. And she threw me in the shower. She got the girls dressed, and she goes, "We're going to lunch." She was my angel in so many ways.
Yeah, I had no idea about this either, of like how Nancy and Vicky became close after that.
But Chris locked down.
On the side of his bed, and Chris would just be laying there crying. Well, Eddie had a beautiful gym upstairs, and I would go upstairs, and the girls would come down and say, "Mom, Chris is crying again." And I would go to the gym, and Chris would just be sitting on the bench, just crying. To see him just crying in my arms, it was very emotional. Here's this big, strong man who is tough and quiet and strong. He broke my heart. But then you see Chris, around the other wrestlers or in a meeting, and he had his face on. So professional, like you wouldn't even think that anything was bothering him. More and more distant, where he was not being seen as much backstage. I couldn't find him. Like Nancy would call me and be like, "How's Chris doing today?" And I said, "Well, I haven't seen him."
She talked to me about it several times. She was like, "There's something going on, and I don't know what it is. You gotta tell me if you notice something." And I was like, "Yes, there's something up." It just seemed different. He was talking more about other wrestlers that had had children kidnapped and fans that went sideways and were violent. He used to take different cars and different ways to the gym that we had been going to for years. It was super random. He just didn't want to be places and be seen. There's a level of
Nancy started getting really worried. She's like, "I'm really worried for Chris. This is really affecting him in so many ways. He was just sad all the time, depressed. He was impatient. There was a lot of fighting going on for reasons that she didn't understand why he would be upset. And she would just be like, life is just really hard right now. Like, Chris is just irritable and he doesn't want to talk to me. He's mad all the time. You know, he was just mad at life in general.
There were a few months not really even talking to Nancy, not really talking to anyone. So we got Chris a journal so that he could write to Eddie. I think that after we got him that journal is when he started opening up a little bit more, because writing to him, he started feeling like maybe Eddie was with him in spirit and in heart by just being able to talk to him every day.
Was there any point when Nancy wanted Chris to maybe step away from wrestling at all?
That last year, she didn't think that it was healthy physically or mentally for him to be on the road and doing so much work in the same places that he and his best friend.
I remember talking to him. He's like, every building I go to, all I can do is think of Eddie. Okay, we're in Kansas City. Last time I was here, Eddie was here. And now we're in New Mexico. Last time I was here, Eddie was here. I think all of those things were kind of signs that something really serious was going on with him.
Was so grief-stricken on a monumental level that she thought that staying in the company and staying in the business was going to eventually harm his well-being.
And she may have been right.
It's Saturday night. I'm going to Laredo, Texas. And Chris, myself, and Scott Armstrong are going to ride together. And then later, I get a call from Chris, and he goes, "Oh man, I'm not going to make it." I go, "What's wrong?" He goes, "Daniel and Nancy have food poisoning, and I'm just trying to take care of them." And I'm like, "Oh man, are you good? You right?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm okay." I said, "For the pay-per-view." So he goes, "Okay, great." I said, "Okay, man," and he goes, "Chavo." I go, "Yeah?" And he goes, "I love you." And I'm like, "Okay, brother, I love you too, man." That was weird. And I go, "Are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm okay, man. I'm just really tired." I said, "Okay, man. Okay, well, you can call me if you need to get any problem." Okay. Then that's it. About 5:30 in the morning, I get a text, and it was from Chris's phone, and it said, "The dogs are in the closed pool area, and the back door is open." So I'm half asleep, and I see this text, and I'm like, "What is that?" All of a sudden, 30 seconds later, I get another text from Nancy's phone, and it says the exact same thing. I was like, "That's weird." I get another text right afterwards. It tells me his physical address. What is that? So I started thinking, I'm picking Chris up in 3 hours at the airport. So then, I meet Scott downstairs. We go get breakfast. I talk to him. I go, "Hey, man, did you get a weird text from Chris?" And he goes, "Yeah, I did." I said, "What did it say?" And he said the exact same thing. We drive to Corpus Christi for the next show. Still no word from Chris. So the head of talent relations, Johnny Ace, asked me, "Chavo, have you heard from Chris?" And I said, "No." I said, "But look, Johnny," and I bring up my phone and I show him. These are the texts that I got from Chris yesterday. And Johnny, his raspy voice, is like, "Chavo, why didn't you show us these yesterday?" I'm like, "Man, we were covering for Chris. We didn't know where he was. You didn't know where he was." The office is starting to get concerned because it was getting to be like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So Vince McMahon has sent a wellness check to his house.
My name is Dennis Fagan. I run wrestling, and one of our wrestlers that lives down there is missing. We need a welfare check done. And what's his name? Chris Benoit. It's spelled Benoit. And he's a wrestler.
So this man calls a meeting at the ring. Dean Malenko's sitting next to me. I just had this really bad feeling. Dean's like, "There's something wrong. Something is not right." That's when Mr. McMahon stands up at the ring and says, "We just got word that Chris Benoit, Nancy, and Daniel have all passed away." And the gaff, of course, around the ring.
I remember Vicky, she just let out this hurling scream.
I freaked out and I started crying, and Dean kind of stood up and he grabbed my hand and he took me off to the back.
So then Vince is backstage, and I walk up to Vince. I said, "What happened? What happened?" And I'm a little frantic. And he says, "They're gone." I said, "What do you mean they're gone?" And he hugs me super tight. And my head's on his shoulder, like crying to Vince, like, "No, no, no. Like, what happened? I don't understand. I don't understand." Nobody understood because no one knew the details yet.
I didn't know what was going on, but I heard enough to know that something's not right. If you would have lined up 100 people against
That's kind of an interesting like thing about Vince. Like when real shit goes down like that, he can, at least depending on who it is, he can let his guard down a little bit. Like he let Chavo cry on his shoulder.
Went from just, regular welfare check. Okay, we got something more serious here.
I came out of the theater and I turned my phone on and I had like 22 missed calls from my parents.
The cop told me that they all passed away over the weekend.
You didn't want to believe it. Can't believe it. Can't be true. But it was.
Yeah,
And now we're on to part 2 on Daily Motion, pal. Wait for it to load. Of course, you got to get the ad in. Oh, wait, no, we're right in it. Whoop, whoop.
This is always very.
I'm really worried for Chris. I just had this really bad feeling.
We have more for you now on a developing story in Fayette County, the deaths of a pro wrestler and his family.
In the immediate wake of Chris Benoit's death, the world is desperately searching for answers. What comes to light goes beyond anything anyone could imagine.
People just can't believe it. Something like that.
You can't be real. Like, where's my nephew?
That happened because the person that I knew would not do.
Gigantic. This will affect WWE.
Well, the question is, was he on steroids at this time? Did the blows to the head Benoit received in the wrestling ring fundamentally change his brain?
Really, lost the darkest time of my life.
Man, and that whole thing was like a turning point in CTE as well. I should say CTE research.
Fayette County, Georgia. It's a laid-back community. It's more a family atmosphere. Not a whole lot of crime.
I think it's time for a little smoky toky time, pal. Whoop whoop. Turning the fan on, yeah, pal. Oh, that's good stuff, pal.
The neighbor was walking over, and I walked up to them. I asked, "You see Mr. Benoit? She said, "It's been 3 or 4 days
seen anybody. There was 2 large canines in the yard. If I remember correctly, they were German Shepherds. We asked her if there was any place she could put the dogs at so we could go up there and do the welfare check. She said, oh yeah, me and the dogs get along great. I feed them whenever they're out of town. And she jumped the fence. Dogs right there with her. She walked them in there, never had to take hold of them. It was taking a little longer than I thought it should take. But then she came running out the door, screaming that Daniel's dead, Daniel's dead. I went from just being a regular welfare check. Okay, we got something more serious here.
Damn, pal.
Crossed the fence that time myself every Monday. We made entry through the side door when she had left open. We drew our weapons, not knowing what was going to come upon us. It was daylight, and they had plenty of windows in the house, so you had a lot of light coming in. There was an odor in the house.
Oh, I was actually showing police photos of the inside of Benoit's house. Damn, dude.
Like a set of stairs going up to a bedroom. So we went up those steps. Sure enough, that's where juvenile child was at, laid in bed. I noticed the child was laying on the bed face down. Deputy Mondays, we need to start CPR. And I said, no, he passed away. We started clearing all the different rooms and doors. That's where we found Miss Benoit. He laid on the floor. She was wrapped up in a blanket or maybe a rug or something like that. Went downstairs to the basement area. A couple of large open rooms. Last door we opened was the gym. That's where Mr. Benoit was at. Because of the mirrors and at the angle Deputy Monday was at to my right, she saw the reflection at the far end of the room, which might have been 5 to 7, 10 feet away from where he actually was. She started to say, show me your hands, Fayette County Sheriff's Department. She could not see. He had cable for one of his weight machines around his neck and had some weights on it. That's when I told her, I said, he's sitting right here, he's passed away. Radio calls, answered everything was okay. I told him on the radio that it looked like it might be homicide and suicide.
Jeez, bro.
Walking back outside.
All right, turning the fan off. 1 sec.
What's going on? This is Dan. I said, what, Chris? This is Chris Benoit. And I pulled over on the side of the road and just started bawling. And I heard my son, he said, Daddy, you cry funny. This was crying, was bawling. At this time, no one knew what happened. And so WWE is just thinking that Chris Benoit has passed away along with Nancy and Daniel. They're not trying to put together that, okay, did someone break in? Did carbon monoxide happen? What's going on? You just know that these two of your friends are gone and no one has answers.
Vince McMahon, chairman of the board, couldn't go on the air and not do anything. So we went on the air and did what we thought was right.
Tonight, this arena here in Corpus Christi, Texas, was to have been filled to capacity with enthusiastic WWE fans.
We tried to honor the guy, tried to honor his family, tried to honor his fans, but we didn't have a full story. Shame on us for that, I guess.
So tonight will be a 3-hour tribute to one of the greatest WWE superstars of all time. We just know that.
Dude, I remember watching this live as that happened. And then I'm going like, just refreshing, looking for updates. And as the show is on the air, it's like there's the reports are coming out. It's now being looked at as a double homicide suicide. I'm like, what the fuck?
Chris Benoit was not only one of the greatest wrestlers I ever saw, but he was one of the best friends I ever had in this business. We did not know all the information. That's our fault. We were trying to serve the audience. It was a major story. It was hitting all the news sources, and we had a TV show. We wanted to update people on what the hell was going on. but we didn't have all the information. But we didn't know we didn't have all the information. We were told from the authorities, here's what happened. Oh, guess what? We were wrong. This is not what happened.
This was the type of guy you want to go to war with. I'm sorry, because at that time, some guys were, their speeches, praising Chris, because Chris Benoit was my hero. I love you, Chris.
It's interesting to me because when I watched the Raw tribute and everybody was talking about Benoit and how great a performer he was and how amazing he was, I thought Regal's words on that night would be revealing. Afterwards, finally lived in the same city as Chris and knew a lot about whatever fights Nancy and him had or whatever Chris was going through at the time. And I'm not sure if a lot of people would have noticed it, but knowing what I knew about him.
Wow. Okay, that's something I did not know about. That Regal kind of had privy to a lot of the domestic issues going on in the Benoit household.
Have some wine with lunch and go watch a movie. I came out of the theater and I turned my phone on and I had like 22 missed calls from my parents. And my parents made sure that they wouldn't tell me anything. They wanted me to be parked in my driveway and inside my house before they told me. And that's how I found out. And then when it finally sunk in, I just absolutely lost control of myself. It was very difficult. Very difficult. I had to go to the hospital and be sedated.
And this number kept calling. My mom's cell phone, unknown number, unknown number, unknown number. And then she finally answered it. And there was the police, RCMP. So we left, rolled down to the station. She found out first. I see her crying there. She couldn't spit it out. So the cop told me that they all passed away over the weekend. I punched them in the chest. Then me and the cop went for a walk. We talked. Your dad loved you. They all loved you. I thought it was a joke. I really did.
It wasn't until after the show and after the fact that all the details started coming in.
We have more for you now on a developing story in Fayette County, the deaths of a pro wrestler and his family. Fayetteville authorities say the bodies of Chris Benoit and his family were found this afternoon in their home.
Right now it's being investigated as a murder-suicide. However, until we get the crime lab reports, it's undetermined exactly what happened.
That's when all of this, all of these details start coming out about it's not just him that's dead, it's Nancy and then Daniel's dead as well. And then that's when it just started getting out of control.
The father killed his wife and son and then committed suicide. That's what's happened here. You didn't want to believe it. Can't believe it. Can't be true. But it was.
I mean, yeah, you don't want to believe that shit's true. I mean, fuck, man.
The evidence indicates that it was a particularly brutal and vicious murder. It was something that showed some sign of real rage. I'm Matthew Randazzo the Fifth, and I'm the author of Ring of Hell, the story of Chris Benoit and the fall of the pro wrestling industry. The weekend of the murders, on Friday, Chris Benoit had a barbecue out by the pool with Daniel, and then that Friday evening, it appears that there was some sort of altercation between Chris and Nancy. That
Bro.
Chris went to bed.
Bro.
Bodies of his wife and child in the house. On Sunday, Benoit
Which again lines up with Chavo and Scott Armstrong's testimony.
one for a story in the Bible about the prophet Elijah and the resurrection of a dead boy in the Old Testament, and then in search about the quickest and most painless way of breaking one's own neck. Chris then went down to his home gym with a half-drunken bottle of wine. He went to his lat pull-down machine, took the bar off, wrapped a towel around his neck, and he took the metal cord from the lat pull-down machine, put it around his neck. He adjusted the weights to 240 pounds, released it. So it's a very bizarre situation, it's a very bizarre weekend. It doesn't leave a lot of answers. He was a guy. No one expects a friend to kill their family. Like, what?
When I found out what really happened, the shock is just, you can't even believe it. He had put his knee in her back and essentially broke her back. I couldn't fathom how cruel and how much pain she must have gone through and how horrific that must have been for her. It was just unfathomable.
If Chris did give Daniel that, medication or prescription pills and suffocate him, like, shame on him. Daniel was innocent in all this.
We were hearing other things come out about the circumstances of him putting the Bibles by their sides and having a knife that he had planted underneath Daniel's bed or something like that.
Still couldn't wrap my head around it. Just sounded so.
Wait, a knife under the bed? I've never heard that shit before. What the fuck, man?
I'm a part of humanizing murderer. Strange.
I mean, to think that Nancy was dead for 2 days before Chris took his life. How is that even logical for this man who loved her so much?
Later, it turned out that there was a Bible in the house, similar to the ones left by Nancy and Daniel's body, that Chris had left something akin to a suicide note, something along the lines of, I'm preparing to leave this earth. So Chris did leave a suicide note. He didn't know what he was doing. He wasn't at least enough in his right mind to understand exactly what was happening, and was still considering whether he would go make a flight to go wrestle that night on international television. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
We came up on it.
Dude.
Last night on Monday Night Raw, the WWE presented a special tribute show recognizing the career of Chris Benoit. However, now some 26 hours later, the facts of this horrific tragedy are known. Therefore, other than my words, there will be no mention of Mr. Benoit's name tonight.
It was understood that we were not to speak of Chris. If anyone this week, Chris's name was erased from everything that was involved with WWE. I mean, when we did interviews, we were not to mention Chris Benoit. So that's something that was really hard for us to do, but because we all wanted our jobs, it was understood.
WWE is kind of like erased.
Yeah, I can't really blame them for like, yeah, we want nothing to do with this shit.
Totally agree with what they did. His wife, or son.
I went to the funeral. They said I was the WWE representative there, just me. Shit. I go to a funeral, people crying, and a kid being buried, and a woman being buried for no reason.
The WWE sent JR, and I lost my cool with him and told him to his face that he wasn't welcome at the wake afterward. It was all a work, just fake, garbage, nonsense. I could see a work coming a mile away, and that's what I saw, and I knew that that was the truth.
I felt like I was the most unwanted person in the building because I was a WWE guy. Especially anybody there.
Everybody was just a mess. It's shitty, and it's sad, and it's unfair because there's
Man, to be fair, like you can kind of see where you kind of empathize with both, Nancy's sister and JR, because like JR actually did care about Nancy and Daniel.
I was angry. At that point, I was pretty angry at Chris, for what he did.
This funeral was very private. We didn't tell anyone about it.
All right, never mind. I take that praise back. Yeah, after hearing from David Benoit, the only people who reached out to him were Chavo and Jericho. Like, all right, never mind then. Praise to Chris and Chavo, praise to Jericho and Chavo. Fuck everyone else.
I didn't even watch news anymore. I didn't watch TV for months. I didn't even watch wrestling anymore.
We're also told by the police here that the murder. There's going to be an autopsy report, but there's an awful lot of confusion about how this happened.
It really, really was the darkest time of my life.
Benoit had an intense on-stage persona. Canadian crippler. The couple actually met when her former husband drew up a script that put the two of them in a relationship.
It made everything extremely difficult. It made everything under a magnifying glass because CNN and Fox and all the news channels were at the gates, you know, a double murder suicide with the 7 news. But I think that there's a point where you really just need to let. All I really wanted to do was to be with my niece and nephew.
The mainstream media's reaction was typical because, A, they love a tragedy, and it gives them another reason to take a shot at wrestling. It was a field day for them.
Professional wrestlers are 20 times more likely to die before age 45 than professional football players.
I think a lot of mainstream media looks down on wrestling as it is, and suddenly it's public enemy number one.
Chris Benoit's diary is revealing new information about his state of mind. The wrestler wrote a series of letters to his best friend. At one point, Benoit wrote, "I'll be with you soon."
Mike Benoit believes it's the diary of his son going mad.
We just didn't understand this was going on at that time in Chris's life.
I got a call from Chris's dad, Mike Benoit. He's thinking my relationship with Chris. First thing he asked me was why. Which from a father's standpoint, I can understand how upset he was. Unfortunately, and I felt bad, I didn't have any answers for him.
People need to understand that that was not him. Not the person we knew. The person I loved with all my heart. My hero.
The term has been being thrown around everywhere. It's roid rage. Some say steroid abuse is rampant at the organization, and everyone just turns a blind eye to this.
The media's initial response to the Benoit tragedy was that this was a roid rage incident.
Where do steroids stand in the bizarre Benoit deaths?
Pro wrestling, when Chris Benoit entered it in the 1980s, was extremely discriminatory against people who were not 6 foot plus tall, who were not 250 pounds or more, and very, very muscular. My understanding is that Chris Benoit was using steroids from when he was in high school. In the months before the murders, Chris received a number of text messages from Nancy, in which she made it very clear she was sick and tired of his steroid abuse. Nancy definitely directly accused him of abusing steroids to the point that it led him to be an angry and violent and unhappy.
Okay, I was not aware of these text messages. Holy shit.
Nonsense. Something called the wellness program that alleged that it was testing every WWE wrestler to make sure they weren't using recreational drugs, performance-enhancing drugs, or steroids.
I think at that time, instituting a wellness program like that, I'm just happy that finally some of these guys that needed the help are going to get help. So it was a great idea to help talent, save guys from themselves.
After Eddie died, the WWE's drug testing was super strict. It went through the roof. Like, you couldn't even take freaking aspirin, like a high-powered aspirin, unless you have like a prescription. And I'm not kidding. Drug testing is so strict that this rampant steroid. Dude, you can't. You can't go snort cocaine or smoke weed or anything.
In practice, it was seen that this initial version of the wellness program had large loopholes in it and large blind spots that allowed wrestlers to continue to use drugs at really large scale without tripping.
Speculation is running wild. Is there another explanation? We have an exclusive interview with WWE Chairman Vince McMahon.
WWE did everything they could to combat any coverage in the news media that indicated that drug abuse or steroid abuse was the cause of the homicides.
And obviously this is not an act of rage, it's an act of deliberation. When you do something like this over 3 days, it's not an act of rage.
Strongly suggests that it is entirely wrong for speculators to suggest that steroids had anything to do with these senseless acts.
It's all speculation until the toxicology reports come back.
In his autopsy, Chris Benoit was shown to have enormous amounts of testosterone in his body. Testosterone is still a steroid that's banned in all major sports. It directly leads to increased muscle growth. Some folks have said he had 10 times the normal amount of testosterone in his body as a normal human.
And did Benoit pass the wellness program check leading up to the murders?
Yes, preposterously, Chris Benoit passed the wellness checks leading up to the murder, despite the irrefutable fact that he was taking enormous amounts of steroids.
Wow. Okay.
Had nightmares. It was very traumatic because as a female, I tend to really get angry with him. The one person she thought was there to protect her is the one that really took her life.
There's a lot of stuff going on behind closed doors that no one knew about. I think there's a lot of volatile fights. One thing I've always heard about Nancy, the fact that she didn't take shit. So I just know there's a lot of volatility. That's the word I think was used, volatile.
There was a few times that Nancy would call me and she would say that her and Chris were fighting. There was an instance when they were in Tampa and Chris was upset when they were driving on the way to our house and Chris went and busted the windshield off their car.
Did you ever witness any abuse on that relationship?
My sister called me to the house, and she called Mike Durham, known as Johnny Grunch, who was also a professional wrestler that lived in the area. And Mike said, I'll go wrangle Chris. I'll go wrangle Chris. Don't do anything rash. But it was already kind of done. He hurt her. I don't know whether it was intentional or accidental, but he hurt her.
Wow.
Respect for the kids that he still has here. I won't go further into that. She got a restraining order against him and stayed at the house. Mike had him at a hotel there in the area. Chris contacted me directly because Nancy wasn't answering any of his calls and asked me to talk to my sister on his behalf. And please, please, please let him come personally. She called him and he came over the next day and they were back together a couple of days later. So I look back on that moment and say, you probably shouldn't have gotten involved, and why did I take his call? Because maybe that would have been the end of it. Almost every day I think about that.
When police found steroids on the scene, many assumed that explained it. The killer had flipped. Or might there be another explanation?
The initial media coverage all focused on steroid use, and I said, there's no way. I'm Chris Nowinski. I'm a former WWE superstar. Now I am a neuroscientist and run the Concussion Legacy Foundation. My wrestling career came to an end because I had a series of concussions that I didn't quite appreciate were concussions.
Okay, I like where they went with this. Like they went through the whole steroid thing, and it's like, hang on, how about this? CTE, pal. Swerve, bro.
Chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, is a progressive degenerative brain disease that appears to be started by hits to the head. What I knew about CTE at that time was that there were 4 cases of NFL players. 2 had died by suicide. 1 had started hearing voices and led the police on a chase through upstate New York and died in a fiery crash going on the wrong side of the highway. When I heard about what happened with Chris Benoit, I immediately remembered a conversation I'd had with him maybe 6 months prior. I remembered that he had sat next to me in the locker room. He said, I heard you write a book about concussions. Yeah, he goes, I'm interested in what you're learning. He's like, how many concussions have you had? I said, well, I can remember at least 6, but I probably had more. I said, how many of you had?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that, Gam. Like there was a lot of stuff happening there. Plus, you had, you can't discount the grief, and basically like him, like Eddie was not just his brother. I think he was his anchor to reality. And once he lost Eddie, that basically was once that was when the countdown started. And then you had everything else in there, the CTE, the steroids, you know, the other substance abuses. Yeah, that actually makes a lot more sense, Gam.
July, and I think within about a month we knew that it was positive for CT, and it was a pretty severe case of CT. So we held a press conference in New York. When you look at Christopher Benoit's brain, it is in fact shocking. Our findings showed extensive areas of tau protein deposition throughout his brain. Tau protein is a marker for brain damage. With Chris, he actually had a
Hey, what's up, Grass? Good to see you, pal. Whoop, whoop. It doing well, pal.
just be areas of his cortex or areas of his brainstem, but there was damage in areas that you would think could influence emotional behaviors. And I believe the degeneration of his brain changed who he was, what he was capable of. If you get hit in the head thousands of times, your brain essentially can start to rot. You get this damage in your brain that even after you stop getting hit in the head, will continue to spread and changes who you are and how you what you become.
Damn, dude. Okay, that actually makes a lot more sense. Yeah, that seemed to be the driving factor right there, in my opinion. I mean, yeah, you had all that other stuff factored in too, just like that was kind of like the fuel that pushed that.
These chair shots from like years ago were hard and they were mean.
In the 90s, we used to take chair shots to the head. That was a badge of honor. And what I mean by that is someone would swing a steel chair at your head. And I literally remember you grit your teeth and you know, tense yourself, tense your neck, and just take it. And hit you on the head with it, and just take it. That was expected. If you had a concussion in wrestling, you just shake it off. Shake it off, go in there and do it. All of us did it.
I wrestled for 20 plus years. Makes me wonder how much CTE do I have? Do these other wrestlers have? Because we all got it to some extent, you know.
Ooh, man, I never thought about that aspect of CTE. Like once like all these reps are learning about like head trauma causes CTE, they're like thinking, oh shit, am I gonna do something like what Benoit did?
Dynamite Kid hears that from Harley Race, does it his whole career, ends up in a real chair. Dynamite Kid tells Chris Benoit does it his whole career, then loses his spine. I mean, there is a clear history of people repeating the most self-destructive story imaginable over and over again.
I think the Benoit tragedy changes the awareness of what CTE is was never before even a conversation point. Now it is.
I think that misses the point. Ultimately, this thing that is the core reason this happened was Chris Benoit made a decision when he was a very young person.
That went out hearts, pal. Whoop whoop.
No matter what happened that weekend, Chris Benoit,
I think his fate was sealed the day that Eddie died. Whether he knew it or not, I don't think anybody could save him after that. Not his kids, not his family, not his other friends. I just think that was the one guy that he said, I can't do anything, he's not with me. Whatever it was that he was going through, you know, I think he just continued to shrink his whole world until all that was left was just whatever was in his head that caused him to snap. And snap.
It's not one thing. I think that it's a factor of alcohol and drugs and yes, possibly CTE and stress and grief. And all of those things rolled together put him on a path that weekend that he couldn't get off.
Chris was always going to be my friend and my brother. I just know that there was something going on with him that wasn't him, and it's something that I'm still very strong with because you love Chris. You just hate what he did.
The act of what he did is unthinkable, unforgivable. It's so hard for me to separate a friendship that I had with him, matches that I had with him, moments, times, car rides. I think I can always look at Chris as one of the best performers our business has ever seen. So,
Man, yeah, and you really got to feel for the people who are closest to him, man, because it was.
No, the issue is that if Chris were here, we could talk to him. He would say, putting me in the Hall of Fame is going to be one of the great distractions of the entire event. So all it's going to do is bring up Nancy and Daniel and Chris in their last 24 hours. So therefore, I say, Chris Benoit is not one of the
Two guys that were the same basically their whole life and had the same reputation of being immaculate professionals, immaculate human beings, the nicest guys, and they both died very young. And one's legacy is acclaimed and one's is buried so that you almost can't say his name. If you would have told Chris, when you die, your name and your body of work is going to be erased from existence forever, it would have broke his heart. Because I think if nothing else, I remember he told me once, like, listen, the critics are the critics, but if you have the respect of your peers, then nothing else matters. So to find out that he would have lost the respect, not only his peers, his friends, his family, I don't think he ever wanted that. It almost took down the whole business. What Chris did almost, and that's another thing, what Chris did almost destroyed the only thing that he ever loved from a professional standpoint. The only thing he ever loved, pro wrestling, Chris Benoit almost destroyed it. That would have torn him apart as well. So it leads us around to why did he do it? I don't think anyone's ever going to be able to answer that question.
Whew. Damn, pal.
People will look at me different now because of what he did. People talking shit behind my back, looking at me different, getting bullied. Screw it. I'm defending my family, what I believe in. He loved them. That definitely was not him. He's still my hero. I think about him all the time. I want them to recognize Nancy, though. She definitely deserves recognition that she doesn't get.
That's the unfortunate and the sad part about the story is that she needs to be remembered for a strong woman pioneering in this business and her talent, and focus on that instead of what happened to her.
She's a Hall of Famer all across the board, in my opinion. She was a pioneer and one of the best at a role that doesn't exist anymore. As a pro wrestling manager, she created the role, she perfected the role, and then when she stopped doing it, the role basically disappeared. I would like nothing better than to see Nancy Benoit. Once again, you can't even say that name, right? Woman. I would like nothing better than to see a woman be put into the WWE Hall of Fame.
She was a great mom. She was a beautiful friend, and Nancy will always be the superstar that she was meant to be in my mind.
Yes. What do you remember the most about Nancy?
I remember everything about her. I remember how her hair smells. She took me in with both hands real hard, under both sides of the blanket to tuck me in, almost like she was putting a lock on me to keep me safe. And to this day, when I get sad or upset or stressed out, I will tuck myself in on the sides so that I feel more secure.
What do you remember the most about Daniel?
I closed my eyes and I could see him doing everything He was our whole lives, all of us. He was very, 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 very loved by our family, by his siblings. He and his brother were just thick as thieves.
Go on.
I tried unsuccessfully. I was told, I won't say by who, that the children didn't want anything to do with us. And apparently the children were told that we didn't want anything to do with them because of what their dad did, which was absolutely not the truth.
My last trip with my family was for WrestleMania 23 in Detroit. And then after the match, we flew back to Atlanta, me, Nancy, and Daniel. My dad went to Mexico for a tour, and then me, Nancy, and Daniel were just hanging around the house, taking pictures, out by the trees, the dogs, and then,
Okay, so, what this is all about. David is absolutely a victim. He's a great kid that was just dealt the bad. It's just not fair. It's not right. He didn't do anything wrong. It's just he's an innocent bystander in all of this.
Dude, it's really good that Daniel has a good support system. With Chavo and Jericho and Nancy's sister.
Felt that because Chris killed his family, that the family he left behind was automatically blackballed from the world. Like they're going to be blamed for what Chris did. To me, those two needed to be reconnected because talking with David and meeting Sandra and knowing she was having the same issues and pain and hurt that David had, and nobody will ever really understand what they went through with the exception of each other. So I thought if I could connect them, if they had a chance to talk, that maybe they could move on. Still realize that they have family in each other.
Chris Jericho, wrestling angel come to life. He gave my number to my nephew and gave my nephew's number to me. We hadn't talked before everything happened.
So,
Dude, that's cool, man. That's really cool that Jericho did that.
It's been a very. Finally called me. I answered. We talked on the phone for probably a good 2 hours. And now, going to watch wrestling. Because I still love it. It's in my blood. Feels like we never were apart. Felt like we just reconnected. Left up where we started. Nothing has changed. Still my Auntie Dusha.
Chris lives on in David every day. And Nancy lives on in Sandra every day. And I think they're both lost when Chris and Nancy died. So hopefully this will help them get found. Yeah, well, because you guys have the same perspective. It's important for you guys. Because we can be friends, supportive, but it's not the same. It's for you guys.
No, it's not the same with family.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
I've never been more grateful and happy to see someone that I love as I was when I saw my nephew.
Do you think you will ever be able to or want to give forgiveness towards Chris?
Yes, I think I do someday want to be able to forgive him. I do. Because carrying around the burden of hate gets exhausting. Everyone deserves forgiveness. And everyone deserves mercy. So I think that within time, there will be a day when I got on my knees and I finally say it, that I forgive him. You never know, it might be tomorrow, but I do know it's not today.
Man, dude, that's Oof. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I learned I did not know before in that, pal. Man, that was rough. That was really rough, pal. Let's go ahead and shut this off. All right, and as always, thank you guys so much for stopping in and hanging out. Always appreciate getting to chill with you and enjoy your company. What's our schedule for this week? See, tomorrow we got Monday Locker Room, Raw Watch Along, Impact Attack, and then Tuesday we like it Raw. And then Tuesday I'll be taking the night off. I have some personal family business to attend to. There might be something on this spontaneously. I'm not 100% sure, but so far nothing is on the schedule for tomorrow night. And then Wednesday we got Wednesday Locker Room, AEW Dynamite Watch Along. Thursday live TNA Impact Watch Along. Friday Locker Room SmackDown Watch Along. And then Saturday Smack Attack. And then HMG After Dark on Saturday night. Hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Much love to y'all. Whoop whoop, yeet yeet. Catch you then, pal.